When I got to the State House, I saw some things that I liked, and I saw some things that I didn't. But what I can tell you we are seeing on the state level, what we continue to see on the federal level, is that government has no value for a dollar. They don't understand that people paid this money in. They don't understand that how we spend it matters. When I got to the State House in 2005, we had a $4 billion budget. 2006, we had a $5 billion budget. In 2007, South Carolina had a $6 billion budget. Government grew by $1 billion a year, and you didn't feel it. I continued to fight wasteful spending, but I noticed that there were more and more voice votes being read across the desk. Bills were being passed, and legislators weren't putting their name with their votes. As an accountant, all I saw were dollar signs. They were growing government, and you couldn't see the spending habits of your legislators. But it all came to a head when we were focused on a piece of legislation that dealt with the cost of living increases for state employees and retirees. At the last minute, a legislator slipped in an amendment that would give legislators retirement perks. Not uncommon, they will do that. I don't judge them, but I think that you should know exactly who voted for it and who voted against it. But instead, it was read across the desk, passed overwhelmingly by a voice vote, and to this day you cannot find one legislator that says they voted themselves a pay raise. I was very upset, and the next day I filed a bill that said anything important enough to be debated on the floor of the House or the Senate is important enough for you to know how your legislator voted. It's not just legislative votes I want to see on the record. I can tell you when I walked into that State House, I was not for term limits. I am absolutely for term limits now. We have to have them.
Yes.
Because what happened to me is not uncommon. Legislators go to Columbia with the best of intentions, but along the way they get broken. They're told not to step out of line, they're threatened with committee assignments, and so they get quiet. The problem is those serving on the high finance committees, they're not your accountants, they're not your finance managers, they're not always people who are used to managing money. They're those who got quiet, did what they're told, and so they basically stay quiet, don't do anything. If we put term limits in place, we will have fresh faces, fresh voices, fresh ideas working for the people of this state and not the power of the legislature. I will also tell you I want all of our budgets and all of our spending online. You are busy and will probably never look at it, but if they think you can see it, they'll have to behave with how you spend it. I compare it to a teacher in the classroom. When the teacher's in the classroom, the kids are fine. When the teacher walks out of the classroom, what happens? The kids cut up a little bit. Not because they're bad kids, but because they can. I want you to be the teacher in the classroom. I want you to see how every taxpayer dollar is spent. And finally, I can tell you I represent Lexington County for $10,000 a year. I want us to have income disclosures in the state of South Carolina for every elected official. Because when you see who's paying your legislators, you will suddenly see why policy has moved the way it has in this state. Two things will happen when we put income disclosures in place. One, legislators will recuse themselves from votes they should not be taking. And two, policy will start to move in South Carolina that benefits the people and businesses of the state and not the wallets of the legislators that represent them.